Good afternoon or evening, and welcome. Kensington Senior Living has 7 unique communities, 4 located in Virginia, Maryland, and New York, and 3 sister communities located in California. We are truly privileged to support care partners and professionals from coast to coast. Kensington focuses on relationship-based care built on the foundation of our promise to love and care for your family as we do our own. That promise was what initially drew me to become a member of the Kensington family, as my father lived at Kensington Senior Living for almost 7 years. It is programs such as the ones you're attending now that are so important to us walking through a caregiving journey, and to hear from these experts on keeping us current with advances in care management and treatment of conditions that affect our families. All registrants from today will receive a copy of today's webinar to share it with friends and family, which I encourage you to do so. Please also use the Q&A function to submit questions during our webinar. You are in for a treat today with AlzAuthors. You will meet authors that will share their journey and story with Alzheimer's. I had the most incredible run of show with these individuals on Monday. They are smart, they are emotional, and they will share with you any tips that they have. I can't thank them enough for joining us today. And I cannot thank Marianne enough, the founder of AlzAuthors, who has become such an incredible partner with Kensington Senior Living. Marianne, can you please join me?
Absolutely. Hello, Sue, and hello, everyone. I'm Marianne, and thank you for sharing your precious time with us. I am a founder of AlzAuthors.com. We are the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. And our mission is to break the silence and stigma that often surrounds a dementia diagnosis by sharing quality books, blogs, podcasts, and films with caregivers and others who are looking for knowledge, comfort, and support. I'm also a registered nurse and have worked with hundreds of families on a dementia journey and had my own journey with my stepfather. I'm the author of a novel, Blue Hydrangeas, an Alzheimer's love story, inspired by couples I met in my work. Before I move on to introduce my esteemed panelists, I want to remind you that November is both National Alzheimer's Month and National Family Caregivers Month, and AlzAuthors has gifts for you. We're offering free copies of our audiobook, Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiving Stories. 58 authors share their inspiring personal experiences to US and UK listeners while they last. And we also have free ebooks of the same available worldwide. And we have free downloads of our informative caregiver tip sheet, 10 tips to create a holiday to remember, compiled by AlzAuthor Kimberly Best, a professional family mediator based in Tennessee. And if you would like either or both of these gifts, you need to email us at alzauthors@gmail.com.
And just to remind the audience, you will receive a copy of this webinar to share, but you will also, in the body of the email that you get, there will be links to purchase these incredible books from our authors today, and to look at a documentary that we're going to also share with you today with Dan. We're going to talk about that. And Marianne, just quickly, when did you found AlzAuthors, and how many authors do you have now?
We founded AlzAuthors in 2015. There were 3 of us, and now we have over 350 authors in our collaborative. So we're really proud about that.
You should be proud about that. Well, let's go ahead and get on with the show, Marianne.
Okay, I would like to bring on Dr. Daniel Gibbs. Hello, Daniel.
Hi there.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, this is great. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and about your book, that would be great.
I'd be happy to. I'm a 72-year-old retired neurologist. I also have Alzheimer's disease. In hindsight, my first symptoms of Alzheimer's occurred in 2006 when I started to lose my sense of smell. In 2012, I inadvertently learned that I have 2 copies of the ApoE4 allele while doing DNA testing for genealogical purposes. That gave me a very high chance of having a diagnosis of Alzheimer's dementia by the time I was 80 and a 50% chance by the time I was 70. I retired a year later in 2013, even though I was still cognitively normal at the time. And I began to volunteer for a total of 8 clinical studies in the years to come, including an ongoing neuroimaging study that tracks the advancement of the disease in my brain with amyloid and tau PET scans, MRI scans, and cognitive tests. My Alzheimer's is progressing very slowly, and that supports the growing body of evidence that lifestyle modifications can be beneficial in slowing the progression of the disease. I can't work as a neurologist anymore, but as my wife Lois says, I've taken on a second career by writing and speaking about what we can do about managing Alzheimer's disease.
I can't thank you enough for sharing with us and our audience. And it's really encouraging. As you know, my father passed away from Alzheimer's. And when you have Alzheimer's in your family, you know, the hereditary risk, you always are concerned. And I think the tip you just gave the audience about lifestyle, and I know you're going to share a little bit more about that, but I really do think that it can make a difference. And I'm so encouraged to hear you say that you feel it does.
Yep, absolutely.
Excellent.
Do you want to
Thank you
just
so
share
much.
real quickly the lifestyle so we don't forget that for the audience? The
Okay,
lifestyle
now
change?
I have to remember, you have to remind me if I forget any.
I'll try.
The evidence is based for exercise. So, you know, getting your 10,000 steps, and that actually seems to be a pretty good number. Getting more than that doesn't seem to add much. But if that seems like too much, even 3,000 steps seems to have an effect as well, just not as robust. The next lifestyle change that has very good data for it now is diet. And following a Mediterranean style diet, I follow the MIND diet, which is a variant of that. And once you get used to it, it's really it's not that hard to do. I mean, I didn't have a hard time giving up the red meats. And the one thing I had trouble with was cheese, because in the MIND diet, you're only allowed 1 serving a week of cheese. And I failed that because I really love cheese. And then about a year ago, I developed lactose intolerance. And so the cheese was out, and now I'm 100% compliant on the MIND diet. The next items are keeping socially active and intellectually active, and that's kind of a no-brainer. But the data is very good for that, and you want to keep developing new connections in your brain. So learning something new seems to be better than. There's been a bit of a controversy about crossword puzzles. Frankly, I think crossword puzzles are great because I enjoy doing them. But what I try to do, particularly on the harder ones as the week goes on, is I look up things I don't know, like a lake in Africa or something like that. So I'm trying to create some new connections in my brain. The next one, and this is an item that the data has been relatively recent in coming within the last 10 years, and that is getting adequate sleep. Mm-hmm. And getting less than 7.5 hours of sleep per night increases the risk and the rate of progression of Alzheimer's. Interestingly, getting more than 9 hours of sleep also increases the risk. So there's a sweet spot somewhere between 7.5 and 9 hours. And of course, that's hard to do when you have Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's interferes with sleep patterns. So you just got to do the best you can. And then finally, managing the cardiovascular risk factors is really, really important, because what's good for the brain is what's good for the heart is good for the brain. So managing hypertension, hyperlipidemia, too many lipids in the blood, and things like that are really important. Diabetes, I think I already mentioned. Mm-hmm. Did I miss anything? I think that's
I think you're spot on, and what's good for the heart is good for the head. And we actually have an event on December 12th with Annie Fenn, who is a retired doctor who started the Brain Health Kitchen because her mother had Alzheimer's, and she was convinced she's a big fan of the Mind Diet. And I will actually send you her book because she has very flavorful recipes that don't have red meat and they don't have cheese. But I agree with you. Cheese was the hardest thing to give up. I love my cheese.
Yeah.
Okay,
All
go
right.
on, Marianne.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'd like to introduce Gerda Saunders. Where's Gerda? Hi, Gerda, and her husband, Peter.
Hi.
Peter's
How are
my
you?
caregiver, helping me to press the right buttons here.
Yes. Yeah. Gerda, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your journey.
The first thing that you hear about me is that I have an immigrant accent, and Peter and I and our two children immigrated from South Africa in 1984, and I've been living in Utah ever since then. And in South Africa, Peter and I met each other when we were at the University of Pretoria together studying science, and we had some of the same classes, science and chemistry and physics. So I taught in South Africa in that, but then when I came here, I was able to go to the university and do a PhD in English. So that's where I'd always liked to write, but that's where I got more of the craft of doing that. And then I want to tell you a little bit. So I taught in gender studies and in English at the University of Utah. So my mother had Alzheimer's. So she had microvascular disease. But when my memory started really going bad, when even in my late 50s, I didn't have to think long to think that, I'll probably have dementia. But I spoke to our family about it, but not to anybody else. And then I had an event, two kinds of events at work that made me feel that I should take care of this and most probably have to retire. And the first was when I was in a meeting of the the Women's Week Committee that I chaired, and we sort of started the meeting and I had an agenda and everything. And then sort of a little bit into the meeting, I just spaced out. And I sort of didn't hear the voices or anything. And then when I sort of came back again, then I had no idea where we were in the agenda, and the person had just finished speaking. And so I looked at my agenda, and the first thing my eyes fell on was introductions. So I said, why don't we introduce ourselves? And the minute I said that, I realized that we'd already done that. So that was one of a clear sign for me that I did not do that again. My teaching also had trouble, but at home, we had the whole family for brunch one day, and I'd made the casserole and everything the night before. I had the table set, everything. When the kids sat down and the grandkids were hungry, I looked in the oven, there was no casserole, and I'd forgotten to bake it that morning. So I had a quiet, weepy tantrum, and the kids did everything. But those were the kinds of things that happened. So I was diagnosed with microvascular disease at the age of 61. And then I wrote a journal. The faculty gave me a lovely leather-bound style journal, and I wrote about my dementia in there. And from the journal, the book came. I wrote about, I had excerpts from the journal, but I wrote about my it was a memoir, so it covered sort of all areas of my life, and I spoke about the life changes that happened in each. And so the dementia is not its own thing. I mean, you undergo a radical perspective change when you fall in love the first time, when you get married, when you have your first child, when you emigrate. You live in different worlds. So anyway, it was I examined all that through the lens of dementia. And so I wrote about my failures and my feelings about them. And then I want to tell you, I wrote it because also to be able to talk about it to people, so it's not such a secret. And also I did research on the brain, and I wrote the book because I feel the more you know, the better you could love.
Very nice. Thank you so much. And I would like to bring on Jane Dwinell. Now, make sure I said that right. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. That's the first time this is our first time meeting like this, other than the other night. So I want to welcome you. And if you could tell us about your story, which is different because you were the caregiver.
That's right. Good evening, everyone. Well, it's evening here. I'm speaking to you from northern Vermont on the Quebec border. And I am the co-author with my late husband, Sky Yardley, of Alzheimer's Canyon, One Couple's Reflections on Living with Dementia. He died almost 3 years ago. He had both Lewy body dementia and Alzheimer's that was discovered on autopsy, which is extremely rare to have both equally and extensively. When he was diagnosed in 2016 at the age of 66 and in otherwise perfect health, with no family history, he said two things. He said, I need to find my people. He wanted to talk with other people who had dementia. And he said, I'm going to do what I can to erase the stigma of this disease. He dove into reading every book he could possibly find about Alzheimer's and other dementias. And then he began to write. And he wrote to, as he said, to make sense of what was happening to him. After a little while, we started a blog, and then we went on a nationwide speaking tour. I was a retired Unitarian Universalist minister, and so we developed a sermon and gave it at congregations, both Unitarian Universalist and United Church of Christ, across the country for a year until he was not able to anymore. His first symptoms were that he lost his spatial ability. When I first met him, he was a produce delivery driver who drove a big truck and who could back it into any little teeny tiny space. We were both water lovers and had a variety of boats. And all of a sudden he couldn't dock a boat or back up a boat. And he blamed the wind and not any other problem. We were also amateur carpenters. We had built 6 houses for ourselves. And we had volunteered in New Orleans after Katrina, helping people rebuild. And all of a sudden he couldn't do carpentry work. It didn't make any sense to him. And that's when he realized he needed to get tested. And so he did. And then he just went off on this journey of, I'm going to do what I can about this to erase the stigma of dementia.
I applaud all of you. My journey is similar to yours. With my dad is I was on a mission to educate and to bring people together because the journey of a caregiver, and all of you are so lucky, and your late husband, Jane, is so lucky that he had you. And I heard about Lois Dan, but I haven't met her yet. And I know Peter down there is an unbelievable caregiver and spouse. And really, my journey was the same, is to educate and let people know to take the stigma away, because it's a horrible, horrible journey. And I just can't thank you all for being here. I just can't thank you enough. Go ahead, Marianne.
That's great. Thank you. And I mean, everybody on the screen is just so remarkable, extraordinary people, and have had such incredible lives, and all of that you've accomplished. It's just really wonderful. I had mentioned my journey was with my stepfather. Prior to that, I had several of my aunts who had dementia as well, but I was aware of them, but not responsible for them. I wasn't a caregiver, so a lot of it escaped me. And then I became a nurse, and that was my thing at work, is helping families through dementia and helping them to find supports in the community and all of that. So I had already written my book when my stepfather was diagnosed. And suddenly I had to take everything that I knew professionally and put it into practice for myself. And that's not an easy thing to do. And Dan probably knows that too. It's like everything I knew kind of went out the window, because now it was somebody that I care about, it wasn't a stranger, and I couldn't be objective. But I realized I needed to put my nursing cap on and come up, what would I tell this person to do if they were not my family? They were just a patient. So that's how I ended up working through that. So yeah, I have a lot of information and experience here for this journey right now to offer everybody. One of the things we wanted to talk about is a very intriguing topic, and it's about how you navigate your days with dementia. And we were wondering what kind of tools that you use, and if you use any tools that are technology based or maybe artificial intelligence. I think Gerda does that. Can you maybe talk about that, Gerda?
Oh, yes, I can. I have to say I check out on the technology totally. If Peter weren't here, I wouldn't have a phone or a computer or anything. So, but I do have like still paper and pen tools and just idea tools. And my first kind of advice is make your life as small as you want it to be. Of course, it's with your spouse and everything, but we've had to reduce our formerly prolific social life to literally, we have 4 sets of friends that we visit, and we have a family of 10. And we don't go to social events other than that. I cannot go to a restaurant. I cannot follow a conversation of, if we have friends, 4 people around the table, they all know to speak one at a time. Else I cannot follow the conversation. And the people closest to you will totally be happy to do that. And the people not close to you will probably not notice. So that is my first thing. And then the second one is there's the daily lack of motivation and apathy and depression and anxiety, which are sort of hallmarks of various dementias. And I sort of have all 3 of those. So my whole day, I would just sit and be miserable if I didn't have the tool of a list. So I make a list. Usually I make a list for Monday, but then that list usually lasts me a whole week to go through because I'm so slow. And I put the tasks on there, and I really make myself do them. Some days I have to promise myself coffee or something in order just to get out of bed. But then I still believe in that promise. So I go through the day doing the household tasks and everything. And I, as you know, that any kind of small success gives you endorphins, and then you do start feeling better, except on some days when you make a mistake every few minutes, and that happens to me sadly too often. I just start out making coffee and then I break the coffee maker, or drop something, glass all over the floor. So on days like that, when it happens one after the other, after the other, after the other, I get really, I don't even think of it as depressed, because there are reasons for why I feel so bad. So anyway, I have to follow that routine. And then if I can't anymore, pull yourself out of everything and go have a nap or walk, whatever works for you. So, and the last thing I want to say is that Peter and I listened to a talk by B.J. Miller, and he's the physician who at age 17 lost an arm and 2 legs. And he's told about how he was in a burn center in the hospital, and it was snowing outside, but he couldn't even see it because the room had no windows, but the nurses told him. And then after a while, one of them came back with just snow in a cupped hands. And he said he touched that snow, and that connection with the outside world, and for him it was a connection with the universe. He said that made him, enabled him to go on with his life. So I prescribe one great pleasure every day if you can do it. And mine is very shallow and very mundane, because Peter and I have dessert every night. And I some days live for that dessert.
I'm going to try to speak, but I love the small motivation that you set your sight on. And if it's to get out of bed because you want your coffee, I think that is absolutely magic. And I love that you need and that you understand. And I'd love to hear from Jane and Dan as well, that you make a list because it gives you purpose. And I think that's just so important. And I also love, they say you only need 5 friends, and that's a lot. But I love that you have figured that out, and that they understand, how not to overwhelm, but to be there to support. And I think that's fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm lucky.
It's wonderful.
Can I jump in here?
Yes,
Jump.
please.
Sky's experience was exactly the opposite. That's
Okay.
the difference of this disease, is you never know how it's going to handle. For Sky, he had no depression. He completely embraced this and went with it. He became more social. We were not a very social couple at all. And he was like, I want to go be with people. And he volunteered at 3 different organizations. Because he just wanted to be with people. He was not worried about conversations or distractions or anything. And it was really good that he did that, because we lost most of our friends, which is a very sad side effect of this disease. People were like, oh, Alzheimer's, huh? Okay, bye. 2 of my close women friends happened to visit me about a month after his diagnosis at the same time. They both happened to drop in, and they both said, what can we do for you? And I said, well, we could go out for lunch once a month or so. And one woman, we're still going out for lunch once a month. And the other woman, I never saw her again until 6 months after Sky died.
Oh, wow.
So
that's what we have to change here. You just nailed it. And that is, there is a fear of this disease and a fear of helping out. And really, there's nothing wrong that can be done. And everybody's symptoms are different. And you just need to be supportive and understand that. And I thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And even he had 3 sisters, and 2 of them disappeared and the other one hung in. So, you just don't ever know. And you have to go with the flow. I mean, that's the whole point of this disease, is that there isn't a pattern. It's not the same for everybody. One of the things that I wrote is called Expect the Unexpected. Like, you gotta pinch hit, and every day it's going to be something different. We never use technology, but I did get a whiteboard at one point to write down the date and all the activities that were happening. Because I noticed Sky would go to the calendar and stare at the calendar. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we need a little bigger here. And then I would erase after whatever it was happened. And he rode his bike. The thing that brought him peace besides writing was riding his bike. He would go ride his bike for hours. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry, Dan should have a turn.
Yeah, I really second Gerda's experiences. I don't do well in groups anymore. And I cannot at all handle it when there's more than one conversation going at the same time, like at a big family dinner or something like that. And if that's the case, I mean, I'd love to have the family there, but I just had to tune it out because I can't sort out the words. One of the things you lose in Alzheimer's is early on, in many cases, in not most cases, is verbal memory, and what I've noticed that I can't do anymore is to figure out words from context. So if I only hear, if Lois, my wife, starts to say something and I don't hear the first couple of words, I have no idea what she said. And so she will often just repeat the sentence before I just to make sure I've got it. So that I still enjoy, getting together with family and with one-on-one with friends. But on the other hand, I'm very aggressive about sharing my diagnosis with just about anybody. So everyone in the neighborhood knows it. And they're all interested. Most of them have read the book. Some of them have seen the documentary that just came out. I actually had a stranger to me come up while Lois and I were walking our dog last week and introduced himself and said, "I just saw your documentary and that was really great." And I thought, how could he have done that? And it turned out that we know his wife. At least I know his wife. I didn't know him. And she had been on him because she was sure that he had early Alzheimer's and kind of made him watch the film. So that was interesting. Shifting gears just a little bit back to what I find is helpful with my day-to-day activities is to schedule my exercise before I want to do something creative. So if I'm thinking I'm going to write something later on, I don't just write it now. I wait till I've had my 10,000 steps with Jack, the dog, and it really makes it easier. And there's data to support that. Exercise clearly causes a long-term benefit in slowing the progression of Alzheimer's, but it also has an acute effect that lasts a few hours, so that at least I'm a little sharper, and there's data to support that otherwise, that you get a little boost in your cognitive abilities that's transient, and you can, if you can, time it to work out with something you need your brains for. Exercise first. And let's see, there was one other comment I was gonna. Well, that's it. I can't remember what else I was going to say.
Dan, how do you track your steps?
Oh, with it, Apple Watch. Yeah.
Okay. The Apple Watch.
An Apple Watch, you can track a lot of things on your Apple Watch. Asking, what tools you need. An Apple Watch is pretty simple, and it can also be a security thing where you can actually, I'm not sure how to use it, but you can tap, like if you have a fall or you need help, because my mother has one just for that, and you can track your steps, and I believe you can track your sleep. So, and your heart rate. What's good for your heart, it's good for your head. Thank you for that.
The falls, mine is just a little too sensitive because one of my chores is clearing the slope behind our house. And it involves a lot of hacking and sawing, and sometimes I'll get this flashing red light and saying, "You've had a fall. Do you need assistance?" And I haven't had a fall. I just was jerking my arm too much. So sometimes the Apple Watch it doesn't quite know what it's talking about.
Okay. Hey, better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've had other authors in other discussions talk about using things like the Apple Watch and the iPhone or a cell phone, smartphone, or Alexa to help them manage their day. And they really, like, Alexa can be really helpful because you can just ask Alexa to do so many different things. One of the authors said she likes to listen to an audiobook, so she'll just tell Alexa to start the story and it picks up right where it left off. And you can use it for timer, for reminders, have it set to go off every day at like 12 12 p.m. when you need to take your medication. So there are just a lot of different things that you can do with these kind of devices. So we just recommend that people explore it and not to be afraid.
You just gave a boost to Amazon.
Yeah, well, yeah. You can see I have my little Apple earbuds and all of that, Apple iPhone. The next thing I wanted to explore a little bit is you mentioned it, family, and how does your family support you? Who wants to go first?
I can.
Okay.
The way our family supported Sky's journey was our son and his partner approached us before Sky was diagnosed, but I knew what was coming because I was a nurse, who had worked in a memory care facility. So I knew what was going on. And our son and his partner happened to approach us saying, we'd like to buy a house, but we can't afford it. Would you like to buy a duplex with us? And I was like, that sounds like a fabulous idea. Yes, please, we would buy a duplex with you. And so we did. And it's not a great idea to keep moving when you have dementia, but it worked for us. We lived in the duplex. We were downstairs in a fully accessible unit, and our son and his partner was upstairs. And we didn't, it wasn't like we spent every day together, but we would, while Sky could still play games, we were big bridge players. We'd play games in the evening. We'd eat together. Our son was a chef, so it was very handy.
Oh, goodness.
And our daughter lived 40 minutes away, so she would come once a week. And she and Sky had always loved hiking. They had hiked the long trail in Vermont together, and so they would often go hiking as long as he could. And then he got to a point where he couldn't. So that was, we had the two kids, and so they were the ones who were supportive. And Sky's one sister who was supportive, who lived out of state, but she called them at least once a week, and they were very close and talked on the phone. And so I was forever grateful for our children. And we were a family who talked about, it helped that I had been a nurse and a member of the clergy. So talking about death was not like a big deal for us. So we were very clear after Sky got diagnosed, did all the paperwork, had all the conversations. And so everybody was on board, and we really worked together, and bless their hearts. They were wonderful. Loved them so much.
That's terrific. What about you, Dan?
Well, we have 3 children, and 2 of them and their families live in Portland. So that is great. We see them all the time, and the grandchildren. We pick up at school 2 days a week, and our other daughter lives in Corvallis, which is about an hour and a half away, and so we don't see her child as much. Isaac, who's 1.5, but we connect by whatever you call it,
Zoom,
or Zoom, or FaceTime.
FaceTime.
Yeah. Almost every day. So, the kids and our grandkids are very involved. Now there's kind of an interesting twist. It's not unique by any means, but because I have 2 copies of the ApoE4 allele, that means that all of my children have at least 1 copy. So they're all at risk, greater risk than normal for getting Alzheimer's, although they may only have 1, and if you have 1, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have Alzheimer's, but it just means an increased risk. But they're all sensitized to that, and I think that's great, because one of the things I'm trying to get out with my talking and my writing is to recognize risk for Alzheimer's earlier in life, when lifestyle changes and perhaps new medications will be most effective. If you wait till the end stage of Alzheimer's dementia, it's really too late. And so there are already a number of studies underway looking at a variety of things, including new drugs in people who don't have cognitive impairment yet, but who are on the Alzheimer's arc. And we know that because they've got positive biomarkers for amyloid and or tau. So these are the sort of things that my children's generation needs to think about participating in and being sensitized to. And at least my kids are. And I'm trying to get the message out to, in general, to start thinking about if there's a family history of Alzheimer's, then I encourage people to start looking into modifying risk factors by midlife and consider joining a study. I love being part of the studies, and I encourage people to do that.
I agree 100%. The more people that participate in the studies, the more accurate we can figure out some type of an antidote. I don't know if there'll be a cure, but some type of an antidote for those that are more susceptible to any type of these brain diseases. Last but not least, the couple that's together.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, I don't have to do anything other than point. But my children too, I have 2 children, and they both have spouses and family. And they are at the peak of building their careers, while my daughter is, and my son, as a most incredibly life-balanced person I've ever known. And he chooses his work hours. He honestly, at least once a month, the whole family goes on some outdoor hiking adventure. And so I want them to do those things they're into. So we ask minimal practical help from them, but they fully informed on what's going on with us, and they're always there to help if we need it. Anyway, so the biggest gift they've given us is to participate in our advanced directive planning and in our doing our last will and testament and all those things. We invited them all to be come to the lawyer with us, so they know our finances, so that if they have to suddenly take over, I mean, if anything happens to Peter, I am lost. And so they are informed of what's going on, and they always on standby for us for anything like that.
Peter's not going anywhere.
I know.
I'm looking at him right there. He's looking at you with the most loving eyes ever.
Yeah. Well, Peter and I have this thing that we talk about all the time, and that is when we find each other lying on the kitchen floor, not, in some kind of a stupid state where we can't be awakened. And so we talk about it all the time. And I always say to him, you're not allowed to land on the kitchen floor before.
I think that's a good plan. Marianne, why don't we take it? Why don't we hear from them, reading a little bit from their books?
Yes,
I'd
absolutely.
I think the audience would love that. So go ahead.
Who would like to go first? Read a little bit from your book.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm gonna bend the rules a little bit and read a chapter from my next book, which is coming out in March.
But also share a little bit about the documentary too.
Okay. Right. Let me read the one thing at a time.
Okay.
Multitasking doesn't do well. Okay, this is actually the last chapter of that book, which is a book of essays that I've written about Alzheimer's disease over the last couple of years, and I put them together in a collection of essays. So this one's called Living in the Moment with Alzheimer's. When we are young, the timeline of our lives stretches from our earliest memories to our expectations for the future. As the cognitive impairment of Alzheimer's disease progresses, that timeline begins to constrict. Perhaps surprisingly, the first memories that start to go are the most recent. Where did I put that? Fill in the blank. The consolidation of new memories in the hippocampus is impaired, while our ability to remember events from the distant past is relatively well preserved in a variety of cortical regions of the brain. As time goes on and the amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles spread throughout the brain, the distant memories start to fade. The memories most likely to endure are those that were associated with strong emotional content, but eventually even those start to disappear. At the same time, our abilities to look into the future, make plans become impaired as damage spreads to the prefrontal cortex. Eventually, in the late stages of Alzheimer's, we're left with life in the present, no past and no future. I'm not there yet, but I can sense the shrinking timeline of memories from the past and plans for the future. For those of us on the Alzheimer's journey, it is really important to embrace the moment and not dwell on the frustration of trying to remember the past and plan for the future. Others can help us retrieve old memories. Calendars, lists, and Post-it notes will help us minimize the chaos of the future. But happiness and peace come from focusing on the moment, whether it is hugging a grandchild, writing in a journal, working in the garden, or listening to great music. As Horace put it over 2,000 years ago, seize the day and don't worry about tomorrow.
Lovely. That's lovely.
That's beautiful. And you
Yeah.
know what? For our audience, what better advice can you give the families and the caregivers for people than exactly what Dan just said? That was the hardest thing for me to see with my dad's progression, is it's so hard to have a conversation because there was no past to talk about a memory, and there was no future to talk about, oh, we're going to have so much fun at the lake this weekend. So it was always in the moment, but put a smile on and seize that moment, I think, is the best advice you can give anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gerda, can you go next? Unmute.
Okay, sure. Well, I have made an executive decision that I'm not going to read from my book, because it was 7 years ago, and I've written a lot since that on my blog post and in the documentary that PBS made. But anyway, I have asked Peter to read a beautiful letter he wrote me just before Thanksgiving. We've always been letter writers, and we always write, on birthdays or so, we always write each other a letter. We don't give physical gifts. But and my excuse is that I actually broke my radius 2 days ago, and I only have an appointment with a doctor with an orthopedic doctor on Monday. So with all that happening, I just did not have time to prepare anything from a book. I'm too slow. But anyway, I'd love for you to read that, Peter.
Okay, so just so that you know, I'm not a writer. I'm not an author.
He's an incredible.
But anyway, here's my letter to Gerda. My dearest Gertie, at physical therapy today, a woman in a wheelchair, about 40, nicely dressed, shiny hair, hands in lap, blocked the aisle. As I tried to go around, she blew into a tube, wheeled back to give me room. I tried to visualize her everyday struggles, getting out of bed, making coffee, or going to doctor like today. Then, of course, I thought of you, my darling. Yesterday, you dropped your wine glass and later your soup bowl. You forgot the squash in the 40-degree oven.
400.
For your mall walking, you forgot your cane. You set out with your wide-legged stride for balance. A minute later, you called. The flashlight on your phone had come on. Could I come help you turn it off? Back at the car, there was your cane next to your seat. At home, you forgot how to log on to doctor's website. At dinner, we clinked our wine glasses twice because you'd forgot we toasted 5 minutes earlier. I see you cringe at each failure. I try to give the appearance that this is just our life and help where I can. I could say something every time, give you a hug or make an encouraging comment, but it seems that what I do causes you less stress. Inside, I cry a little every time. When it gets too much for you, I hold you and wipe your tears. If a different way of showing that I see you would work better, please tell me. Most people have no idea that you have overwhelming mental hurdles every hour, every day. When rested, you still socialize as elegantly. Others only see your often dramatic sense of fashion and sparkling personality. They read your blog, which is like an angel wrote it. Your behind-the-scenes life is a metaphor that only our dark, humid family knows will make you laugh. You are my Black Knight, as in Monty Python. King Arthur is your dementia. When it chops off the Black Knight's arm, the knight says, "'Tis just a scratch." When the second arm goes, "Just a flesh wound." When Arthur lops off both legs, the knight shouts, "Come here, I'll bite your legs off." My beloved Black Knight, you have the courage and determination of a medieval army. I admire you so much. I just adore you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love you guys.
I disagree. I think you can write.
Incredible. I
That's
just
Well-
I laughed until I cried. A
wonderful.
bad day, and then my my depression went away.
I'm so glad.
That's wonderful. Jane?
Wow, it's going to be hard to follow that.
Oh, come on, Jane.
I'm going to try. Okay, here we go.
That's a hat.
This piece is written by Sky, and it's called Rain Hat. For a couple of months now, I've been sporting this hat knitted by Jane. Every day I get comments. "Hey, that looks like a brain. Love your hat, man." And my favorite so far, "Your brain is showing." Most comments toss the ball back into my court, giving me an opportunity to respond. Do I laugh and keep going? Do I stop and chat? The hat is a pretty good indicator of how strong and confident and engaged I'm feeling. In fact, the hat has opened up some very interesting conversations. At the very least, it's good for eye contact and a good laugh. Once, feeling strong, I responded, "Actually, it's my Alzheimer's hat. I've recently learned that I have Alzheimer's, and the hat is giving my brain support." Then the other person grins and says, "My wife has Alzheimer's. She's at home. Would you like to see a picture of her?" "Of course." "See, she's very happy." "Wow, she looks it," I say. And she really does. Something about her eyes convey to me a presence, a steady strength that's hard to describe in words. Could this be the bond of the demented? 10 minutes later, I'm getting another like for my hat. Energized, I repeat the line that works so well. "Actually, it's my Alzheimer's hat. I recently learned that I have Alzheimer's, and the hat is giving my brain support." This time, before I can finish my sentence, my liker is staring at her shoes, muttering, interesting, and then barrels off down the sidewalk without a backward glance.
Wow.
Lovely.
That's great.
I
love that. I love
I
the hat too.
wait to read all of your books.
They're wonderful.
All of your books. Before I forget, we've had a couple questions. Dan, the name of your documentary, and I will remind the audience that we will send links to all of that to everyone. But Dan, if you could just share the name of your documentary.
The name is the same as the book. It's a tattoo on my brain.
And I believe
Fabulous.
we're going to be able to share with the audience a preview of that as well in your email that you'll get probably by Friday.
Mhm.
We're running out of time, but Marianne, I want you to read an excerpt from your book. And I just want to thank all of you so much for sharing your story. And I think we should do this again. Maybe we have a new club.
Yeah,
Sure.
sounds great.
Go ahead and share, Marianne. But again, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is from the prologue to Blue Hydrangeas, an Alzheimer's love story. It was inspired by people that I meet in my work. While night settled on blue hydrangeas, Jack and Sarah lay nestled on the couch, wrapped in a hand-knit afghan and clinging to each other as silent as stones. The lights were out. A crackling fire lit the room and shadows danced on the walls. He cradled her in his arms and stared into space, detached. She focused on the fire, unyielding in his embrace, so far away. The bark he had put on the CD player had long ended. Outside, the first snowfall of winter blanketed Cape Cod. He had done all he could to make this evening the same as any other, but this god-awful quiet made everything seem so wrong. After 45 years of marriage, it wouldn't have surprised him if they had run out of things to say, but not a day ended without some new insight or tidbit of information passing between them. They shared everything, their deepest fears, their most private thoughts. Tonight, there was nothing, just this palpable silence as they ruminated separately on their visit to Dr. Fallon and the horrifying news he had given them. Jack pondered the same troublesome thoughts over and over, making no progress in absorbing the doctor's diagnosis. He knew enough about Alzheimer's to fill him with fear, a fear he had not experienced since his days as a medic in World War II. Back then, he had lived in anticipation of the next strike, the next slew of casualties. He could not sleep, he could not eat. Uncertainty consumed every moment. Sarah's Alzheimer's filled him with the same fear and anxiety. He did not know what to expect or when or how bad it would be. Some situations defy words, and there were no words, no phony reassurances to make this right. If there were, he could not pretend to know them.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much. And we definitely will reconnect. I would love to be able to do this again.
Yeah.
Please share the webinar to our audience with friends and family and buy these books. I can't wait. What a great holiday gift for everyone. Thank
Yes,
you, Marianne.
excellent.
Thank you,
Thank you.
AlzAuthors. And thank you again.
Thank you.
You. Thanks very much.